Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and there is a ton of news and notes surrounding the Fins that must be addressed before we give the Patriots our full attention. From the filling out of the practice squad to an interesting waiver wire claim, the Dolphins continue to build and shape out their roster, and we're going to take a look at what these moves could mean in the long run. Let's get ready. And let's dive in.
But when you get to the point where you got to play the Miami Dolphins, and if Tua is playing at a little above average, you know how tough that out going to be to get through that defense? And Lord have mercy, don't let them start scoring points offensively. I think people forgot how good the Miami Dolphins defense was last year because we got so enamored with what was happening with the Buffalo Bills. The bottom line is this: Tua takes a step. I think he's in that same line with all of these other young guys in the league that can play at a high level, and this defense will carry the Miami Dolphins. I think one of the wild card spots will be occupied by them, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's because Tua played well and that defense was lights out.
When Miami made their final 53-man roster last Tuesday, there was a name that was on it: Jamal Perry. And like we discussed in the last episode, Perry had years of experience in the Josh Boyer and Brian Flores system, and we figured that experience is what helped him nab one of those final roster spots. Nope. Sorry. Any relief that Perry felt was short-lived, as he was waived by the team to make room for yet another corner. The Dolphins claimed former New York Jet Elijah Campbell, and it seems the Dolphins coaching staff felt that they really got out of Perry all that they could get out of Perry, and it was now time to work on developing with another guy who has a potentially higher ceiling. And Elijah Campbell is that. If you've heard the name before, it's either because you keep tabs on enemies up north, or you're an avid fan of professional football beyond the NFL, because Elijah Campbell, after he was cut by the Browns as an undrafted free agent in 2018, spent time in the Alliance for American Football, or AAF, on the Birmingham Iron. The Iron were actually a damn good team in the AAF, but nothing compared to Garrett Gilbert and the Orlando Apollos. But I digress. He then went and played for the DC Defenders of the short-lived XFL as well, so it's cool to see him continue working at his passion and sticking around the league. His role for Miami, and what I think brought him here versus Jamal Perry, is his special teams talent. Jamal Perry, when compared to Campbell, was more of a coverage specialist. He was not the best gunner and didn't really provide much else with his small frame in special teams, but Elijah Campbell is a bigger and better athlete. The Dolphins can utilize that now on special teams while also developing him on the back end at practice in case of injury. It will be interesting to see how Elijah Campbell fits into this defense and if he's a scheme fit. If he mainly serves, though, as a special teams guy, or if he gets some game action at all this year. I personally wouldn't be surprised to see Jamal Perry get signed by the Patriots. It's where he started his career and where he met Brian Flores and Josh Boyer. Plus, the Patriots need secondary help at the moment now that Stephon Gilmore's out for the first 6 weeks. But if not, Jamal Perry could be brought back later in the year to Miami if injuries befall the team. His aforementioned experience in this system lends itself well to smooth integration mid-season in that instance if there is an injury and you need to bring in a guy who you know can seamlessly be thrown in. But I mean, the Patriots truly may look to add him, considering they had no problem poaching another one of our Perrys, Malcolm Perry, and that hurt a lot. The more I've thought about it, the more frustrating this is, because I don't think we needed to lose him. I would have liked to keep him on the roster, perhaps cut someone like Robert Jones, maybe add him back to the practice squad, or hell, do that with Greg Little. I don't think many teams were climbing over themselves to get Greg Little on their team, but that way we could actually know that we get Malcolm Perry guaranteed if you snuck him through on the actual roster rather than playing that game and waiving him and trying to re-sign him, because look, I think he was worth investing in, and now he's going to do wonders with Mac Jones. I feel it. What type of receiver was Malcolm Perry? A small, quick slot receiver. Plays with toughness, an aggressive mentality, and high intelligence. Those are all features most prominently seen in the Patriots' history at the slot position. And now that they're running this with Mac, they're running it back to 2002. They want to have an offense that gets the ball out of Mac's hands fast when they're not trying to run the ball. And considering their lack of skill players, I think Malcolm Perry is going to be a household name up in New England by the time the season ends. And that's going to sting. But trust me, a lot of Dolphins fans are going to be left second-guessing this move because I don't think we had to let him go. And now, if he does work out in New England, we're going to be suffering for it. But silver lining, this show's about the silver lining. From a bird's eye perspective, this one move, the Patriots claiming Malcolm Perry off of waivers, preventing him from rejoining Miami on the practice squad, I think that one move speaks a lot louder than what most people realize. Because in the past, the Dolphins would try to claim guys from teams across the league. This was done to try to augment any deficiencies that the team had at that point in time, fill out a void that was made due to injury, or to generally just improve the bottom of the roster, which wasn't that good. Most teams do this because most teams aren't that good. But the bad teams, they do it with no purpose. Like we were saying, they snag the hot names that they see on the waiver wire, throw them in their system, and hope to see if it sticks. Teams with purpose, though, teams with a system and structure that they genuinely believe in, they poach guys from other teams' practice squads and make waiver wire claims for another reason, because they're trying to find specific pieces for their scheme. And through research of how other teams use those specific players that were released, maybe their own also pre-draft assessment on a specific player, for whatever reason, the guys are then claimed for that specific role. When Brian Flores was hired, he brought with him the ideology which he learned from Bill Belichick and the Patriots. We talked about that in previous episodes, but in a nutshell, that calls for players with positional flexibility, athletic cornerbacks, big beefy offensive linemen, and generally speed on the outside. Obviously, as you get deeper into the scheme and how certain positions should be playing depending on their role, the type of player that you want gets more complicated. But for that reason, you see teams who run similar schemes poach from each other more often. And that is what we're seeing now develop between the Patriots and Dolphins in recent years, except for one thing. When this started, this weird incestual relationship, Miami was bringing in guys from the Patriots. We were the lesser team, picking up their scraps to fortify our lines. Think about the amount of names that were brought in since Flores came in. Eric Rowe, Jamal Perry, like we talked about, Ted Karras, Elandon Roberts, so many more. We were clearly looking at New England's roster a lot more closely than most others. Why? Not because Flores wants to stick it to Bill. No, because we have similar profiles in the types of players we like because of our particular scheme. It makes sense. We were the worst team, and so we looked to the Patriots to improve. Then something happened. We started to build a culture in Miami, brought in core guys. We began drafting well with Chris Grier, saw development and growth from players who were drafted, which then allowed us to let go of other players and bring in new pieces via free agency. We began to build our own identity, and it culminated in Brian Flores' second season as he finished with a 10-6 record and had a program in which all of his players believed in and bought into. Things are on the up and up. Things, on the other hand, have not gone as smoothly up north for the Patriots. Since the time of Miami's development under Brian Flores, it's been south. After a first-round loss in 19 to Ryan Tannehill and the Titans, it was goodbye to Tom Brady because the Patriots began to devolve. Their empire fell apart before our eyes, obviously, starting with that playoff loss, then Tom Brady walking, joining Tampa Bay, rewriting history. Bill thought he could win with a washed-up Cam Newton, and we all now know what most of us knew then, but now everyone knows it. It wasn't going to work. The Patriots no longer have Tom Brady to hide their warts. They were exposed for all that poor drafting that they've done over the years, and inevitably, they took a step back, a below 500 step back. So in a matter of years, us, the worst team, would look to New England to improve their team. That's what we did. Now, I think what you're seeing is that the roles have reversed. The Patriots are now picking up our scraps to improve their roster. Just think, for this past season, we cut Kyle Van Noy because we upgraded the position and didn't need to overpay him. Where does he go? Scurrying back to New England. The Patriots then proceeded to sign Devon Godchow to a big deal, and most recently scooped up our first major cut in Malcolm Perry as soon as the waiver wire opened up. And before that, they signed Raekwon McMillan, who we let go because he no longer was needed here. Look, we got one of their guys too, Adam Butler, but he was signed to be a rotational defensive lineman, not a starter. Butler is behind Raekwon Davis, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, and in some game plans, he'll be behind John Jenkins. Devon Godchow, on the other hand, was brought in to start for New England, as was Kyle Van Noy, and soon enough, Malcolm Perry. The point, yes, it sucks seeing Perry go to the dark side and join the Patriots. But understand one thing. We are the team that New England is looking to in order to improve their roster. And I think that says a lot about where our two franchises are. But hey, we'll find out very, very soon. Speaking of the practice squad, the Dolphins have finalized theirs, and we're going to go through it. See which guys have a shot of actually getting live action during the regular season. So for the practice squad, it was mostly offensive players, and starting on the offensive side of the ball, the Dolphins brought back quarterback Reed Sinnett, a good move. He's shown growth while he's been here, and his most recent performance against the Bengals definitely earned him some rope as the third guy behind Tua and Brissett. Glad to see him back. He's likely only going to get called up to active duty in case of injury to either Tua or Brissett. If not, then Miami's going to continue to roll with just two guys who will be dressed on Sundays. At running back, Miami decided to keep the whole lot of guys who were competing for what we thought was one last spot, but it looks like none of them got that last spot because it didn't exist, but they all get to stay in Miami for the foreseeable future on the practice squad. I'm talking about Patrick Laird, Jared Dokes, and Jordan Scarlett. My guess is Laird, he would be the first call-up, considering his experience. But if there was a long-term injury and Miami wanted to get a guy for more than a week or two, then perhaps you would see Jared Dokes being called up to play in the regular season, because then he gets to develop week in and week out with game reps. You already know what you're getting from Laird. Regardless, it is nice to see the team store depth at the running back spot. Moving on, Miami decided to keep everyone's favorite receiver, Kirk Merritt, passed through waivers and was re-signed by the Dolphins. Great news all around, and he was a guy who flashed and now is likely going to stick around for at least another season in case of injury, which can be expected, unfortunately, with this group of receivers. We very well likely will see number 83 suit up this season. The Dolphins kept two offensive linemen on the practice squad, tackle Adam Pankey and guard Derval Quiroz-Neto. Pankey makes a lot of sense considering Miami's thin at tackle with just Jesse Davis and Greg Little there, but I don't really see a future for Pankey to develop and become a swing tackle for the team. He likely won't see playing time if I had to guess, but then again, injuries are a wild thing in this league, and if there are enough injuries at tackle, Pankey will definitely get activated. I am stoked to see Neto stick around, though. Hopefully his development continues, and we can eventually start him. If he's better than our current guys, likely will never be better than Robert Hunt, but he is just as strong, potentially, as Solomon Kindley, and is more athletic. So if he can grow and develop, eventually usurp Kindley, that's a great thing. But worst case, if he does put film on tape, perhaps you could flip him for a draft pick. Moving to the defense, the Dolphins kept less guys, like I said, from this side of the ball, which, again, is surprising. But on the defensive line, Miami chose not to keep hold of any of their young guys from camp. So no Tyshawn Render, no Benito Jones, or no Jonathan Ledbetter. Instead, the Dolphins used one of the new exemptions from the CBA. You can now have a veteran on the practice squad. It used to be some bunch of rules of eligibility of a player not being able to, be on the practice squad if they had been in the league for a certain amount of time or had played a certain amount of snaps. There are no more thresholds. I believe it's only two veterans, though. You can't have like an unlimited practice squad of veterans. But hey, it's better than none. And with that stipulation, the team brought in defensive end Jabal Sheard to the practice squad. And I love this move because although Sheard is definitely not the same player he once was, definitely past his prime, he's definitely someone who's experienced in this defense and can be plug and play in case of injury. Not plug and play at a high level, but at the very least plug and play. Of course, the experience I'm referencing in New England, where he played for Brian Flores, but now at 32, Jabal Sheard is a seasoned vet who can set the edge and can be in the right spot down to down. I actually think that we will actually see Jabal Sheard during this year because of injuries and because of his experience. Miami, moving to linebackers, decided to retain two of them. Calvin Munson, who made that big play interception against the Falcons, he keeps developing and he continues to stay as an inside linebacker. And the Dolphins decided to keep Shaquem Griffin. I am very happy to see Shaq Griffin back, not only because he's a good special teams player who can help you out in a pinch, but he is also a great locker room guy. Hopefully his career continues and he shows his worth at the pro level. And lastly, the Dolphins kept one cornerback, Javaris Davis. Davis is the cousin of former Dolphin Vontae Davis, and he seemingly impressed some in camp. I think he's more of a practice squad guy. I think that's what you need right now. keep him in practice. He won't get called up this season. Again, considering the depth that is ahead of him at the position. Instead, he'll get time to develop, work on his craft before getting to compete for playing time next offseason. So that's the practice squad as of now for the Dolphins. There will be shifts and changes in the coming weeks, but it's definitely cool to see the final version of this Dolphins team before they embark on one of the most pivotal seasons in recent memory. And to close the show, we got some jersey number updates, with both of them coming in the secondary. Rookies come into a team, and they tend to get the worst choices for numbers. If you've ever played high school or college football, you know how it goes. Those with seniorities, they get their numbers, and you just get to pick what's left. Well, unlike high school, older guys with more experience can get cut, therefore leaving you with a chance to upgrade your number. So in this case, the numbers taken were not from guys who were actually cut, but guys who won't be on the roster due to injury. First, cornerback Trill Williams. He was the undrafted playmaker who made the squad from Syracuse. He was assigned number 51, god-awful number for a corner, and he's gotten his old college number back in number 6. That's going to look much, much better on Sundays. Here's the problem, though, there. Number 6 was previously taken by Lynn Bowden Jr., and Bowden Jr. is still on the roster, just not on the active roster. It's funny how things work, isn't it? Lynn Bowden steals Albert Wilson's number 15 when he opted out, and now that Bowden's out on IR, his number gets stolen by a rookie. The football gods work in mysterious ways. And on the other change, this one also looks really good. It comes from second-round safety Javon Holland. Holland was wearing number 22, which I did like at the safety position, but once his old number at Oregon, number 8, opened up, it was over. He made the switch and is now going to be rocking that OG number. The number 8 was being worn by Allen Hurns, but following his wrist injury, the number opened up for Holland to take. And unlike Lynn Bowden's 6, I don't think Holland's going to have to give that one up in the future. So, stepping back, what do you guys think of this Dolphins team now that we have a full picture of their active 53-man roster and their 16-player practice squad? How does this team look at large? Where are their holes? Where is their depth? Are you happy with the improvements, or are you just generally still worried? If you are worried, let us know why in the comments below. I love talking to you guys over on the YouTube side of things. If you're watching there, we have a ton of social media interactions at PhinsPod, so be sure to follow us there so we can talk, because I love hearing what the insight that you guys have to give. Always appreciate it.
But right now, when we look at this division and what the New England Patriots did and how everybody is excited about Mac Jones being a quarterback, Tua gets a little lost. But remember this, Brian Flores coached for the New England Patriots. Brian Flores has a quarterback from Alabama. And you don't think Nick Saban's phone worked when Brian Flores called? Just like it works when Bill Belichick calls? They have a great understanding about what Tua is going to be in this offense. And I think they just playing coy right now.
That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Timothy Ritchie and Brian Guger, members of the pod and supporters of the show over on Patreon. Check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all so much for the support over there. And please remember to like the video if you enjoyed the show. Subscribe just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember that the PhinsPod's available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and of course here on YouTube. Continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram at PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day. And until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.